It was the kind of meeting where no one dared speak unless spoken to. A room filled with uniforms, medals, and thick egos. The military headquarters in Ouagadougou, 2022. Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat quietly, listening, eyes steady as a heated discussion circled around missing weapons from recent shipments. Something didn't add up, and though he was young, Traoré wasn't foolish. He leaned forward. "Sir," he said, voice clear, "with all due respect, the allocation reports don't match the field inventory. Could we look into where the weapons are actually going?" The room froze. Then came the laugh, a slow, dry, condescending chuckle from the head of the table. General Dabo. He leaned back, lips curling into a sneer. "Captain Traoré," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You don't question orders. You carry them out. Or maybe you're in the wrong profession." He slammed his palm on the table. "You're just a soldier. Let the real men handle the thinking." And just like that, the room erupted in laughter. Officers, many twice his age, grinned, chuckled, some openly scoffed. The message was clear. Know your place. You don't speak truth in a room built on hierarchy and secrets. Traoré sat still. His face revealed nothing. But inside, a storm was forming. He didn't respond. He didn't argue. He just took a quiet breath and noted who laughed. Because while they thought he was naive, a boy among men, what they didn't know was that Captain Traoré had already begun his silent war. For months he had suspected corruption, weapons missing, funds unaccounted for, missions that didn't make sense. He had started collecting reports, cross-checking manifests, and gaining the trust of younger officers who saw what he saw, but were too afraid to speak. That meeting, the mockery, the humiliation, it didn't crush him. It confirmed everything. So, while the old guard laughed that day, thinking they had put a cocky young captain in his place, they didn't realize they had just lit the fuse. And it was only a matter of time before the explosion. The weeks that followed were colder than any winter night. Not because of the weather, but because of the silence. After that infamous meeting, Ibrahim Traoré became a ghost in the hallways. Conversations would stop when he entered a room. Smirks followed him like shadows. Some officers wouldn't even look at him. Others made a point to exclude him from key decisions, assigning him menial tasks far below his rank. But he never raised his voice, never complained. He just watched, listened, and collected. Every ignored order, every altered report, every shipment that disappeared without record, he made copies, quietly built a file, a mountain of evidence. Corruption ran deeper than even he had imagined. The same men who mocked him were selling weapons to the highest bidder and laundering military funds through fake operations. By night, he wrote everything down. By day, he endured. Some of the younger soldiers noticed. They respected him, not because he outranked them, but because he stood for something. Slowly, quietly, they started helping, smuggling him information, confirming patterns, watching his back. But the more he uncovered, the more dangerous it became. One evening, as he was returning to his quarters, he found his locker open. His files were gone. The message was clear. They knew. That night, he didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, breathing slow, steady. The fire inside him didn't die. It hardened. If they wanted war, he'd give it to them. He changed tactics, became more discreet, used encrypted backups, never kept originals in one place. His network grew. Discreet meetings in alleyways, coded messages through radio silence. His operation was underground now. And yet, the humiliation never stopped. At a training exercise, a senior colonel made him run drills twice in front of cadets, barking insults the entire time. "Show them what incompetence looks like," he sneered. Laughter again, the same sharp, gut-punching sound from that first meeting. Traoré bit his tongue, took the orders, and afterward he walked away with his fists clenched so tight his palms bled. But behind the rage, his mind sharpened. He began understanding how power worked, where the alliances were, who was loyal, who could be swayed. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was preparing to lead. The year turned, and tensions across the country deepened. Terrorist attacks increased, supplies ran short, morale among troops plummeted. The public began to question the military's leadership, and in the shadows, Ibrahim Traoré waited. He wasn't alone anymore. His movement, once a whisper, had become a pulse. Young officers, disillusioned by the corruption, gravitated toward him. Civilians began murmuring his name. There was hope somehow in that name. Then came the breaking point. A disastrous mission where dozens of soldiers were sent in, under-equipped, ambushed, and slaughtered. The reason? Someone had diverted the weapons shipment. The country mourned. But inside the ranks, rage brewed. Traoré seized the moment. In hushed meetings across barracks and bases, he spoke not of revenge, but of purpose, of reclaiming the honor of the uniform, of defending their homeland not just from terrorists, but from rot within. The message hit deep. These weren't speeches. They were truths. Truths spoken by a man who had been spat on, beaten down, and still stood tall. Plans were drawn, loyalties tested, and one night the silence shattered. A coordinated series of takeovers began. Communication centers, armories, command posts, all seized within hours. No bloodshed, just precision and resolve. When the sun rose, the flag above the capital had changed, and in its center stood the man they once called just a soldier. Captain Ibrahim Traoré had taken control. The coup wasn't chaotic. It was calculated. The people, exhausted by lies, welcomed it. Soldiers, tired of serving thieves in uniform, supported it. And those who once mocked him? They were rounded up, one by one. General Dabo was found hiding in a private villa. When he was brought in, handcuffed, eyes wide, he saw Traoré waiting in the very room where he had been humiliated 2 years before. No laughter now. Traoré didn't raise his voice. He simply looked him in the eye and said, "This time, I give the orders." Justice wasn't loud. It was surgical. Those who betrayed the country were tried. Assets seized. The files Traoré had collected became public record. Transparency returned. Hope followed. And the people, they didn't forget. They sang his name not as a warrior, but as a man who endured the fire, and emerged unburned. He never asked for power, but when history knocked, he opened the door. Because sometimes the quietest soldier is the one who ends the war. They called it a coup, but for the people, it felt more like an exorcism. The ghosts of corruption, arrogance, and betrayal were finally being dragged into the light. And the man leading it all? He wasn't draped in medals. He didn't walk with pomp or deliver rehearsed speeches. He walked like a soldier. He spoke like a son of the soil. And he governed with the quiet fury of a man who had once swallowed every insult and turned it into steel. Ibrahim Traoré never gloated. When reporters asked him what he felt watching the same men who had mocked him now face trial, he simply said, "I feel sorry for what they became, but I feel more sorry for what they destroyed." He focused on rebuilding, restoring trust, putting real leaders in command, those who bled beside the troops, not those who dined in comfort while others died in ambushes. His first reform was to declassify every financial transaction linked to the military. Within days, dozens of shell companies collapsed. Billions were recovered. Hospitals got supplies. Soldiers got boots. Families got answers. The shift was visible. Mothers no longer cried alone. Fathers walked with pride. Youth saw a future that wasn't paved in fear and silence. But not everyone celebrated. There were still whispers, old elites hiding behind foreign alliances, attempts at sabotage. But this time, the system didn't protect them, because the man in charge had already lived through betrayal, and he had no illusions left. His justice was firm, but never cruel. His power absolute, but never abused. One evening, he walked past the same room where General Dabo once humiliated him. It had been turned into a training hall now. Young cadets were inside, listening to a lecture on integrity. He didn't stop, just smiled. Because he knew the real victory wasn't in taking back control. It was in changing what control meant. And to every soldier who ever felt unheard, to every citizen who ever felt small, his story whispered, "Don't let them define you. Don't let their laughter bury your truth." Justice isn't always loud, but it always arrives, and sometimes it wears the boots of the one they once tried to silence.